Well, the men's under-20 athletes will be warming up now for their race, which is due underway in about 6 or 7 minutes at 10 past the hour. It is time for the second event of 3 on this first day. Men's under-20, 10 kilometres, 5 laps for them, of course. There's a field of 35 athletes, again from 21 nations, taking part. And as ever, the Chinese expected to dominate their trio. Very, very strong in this one. Other strong squads, Spain, Italy and Turkey. But one particular athlete we'll be fascinated to see in this one is Kenya's Hairiston Wanyonyi, who won in front of the home crowd in Nairobi last summer the World Under-20 10,000 metre track title. Of course, the Kenyans with a fabulous tradition in the endurance events. Wanyonyi is somebody I shall be fascinated to see in action. But let's take a look at some of those entrants now. The Australians again with good representation from Saunders and Joaquim. The Chinese with just 2 athletes here, Wang and Zhen. That's Zheng Yu and Wang Hongren, but they are amongst the fastest. Look out too for the Czechs. They have a great tradition in race walking. The Spanish, of course, amongst the top European walkers. Erinchev of Finland. I wonder how inspired he will be by that medal-winning performance of Hetta Veigal, his compatriot in the women's under-20 race. Demir of Turkey, one of their pairing, 4th in the European Juniors, the European under-20 track 10,000 last year. He's a good walker. He's the 18-year-old. There's his teammate Hayrettin Yildiz, just 17 years old. But the Turks too should be fairly used to walking in high temperatures, even if their winters can be on the cold side, of course. Istanbul gets cold winters like so much of the rest of Europe. Well, here we are in Muscat with a breeze coming from the north to the athletes and their faces. It'll be when they set off from the start line. It's flat initially, and then there's quite a severe drop down towards the northern end of the course. They're walking towards the sea here with the wind in their faces, and that wind continues through the day, I understand. But when they make that turn and then head up the on the uphill section, they've got the wind behind them. The 35-kilometre races, both of which are tomorrow, they have a separate start there on this 2-kilometre circuit. Water stations, of course, out on the circuit for the athletes. At that southern tip, they take a U-turn and then pass back through the finish line. Once they pass the penalty zone, that is the full 2-kilometre circuit. So, only two to score, of course, in this race, as in the women's discipline. Wanyonyi will be an athlete we shall watch with great interest. Just a couple of minutes to go. So the athletes gathering then at the start line for this men's under-20 10-kilometre race. 3 minutes to go, the officials are telling them. And Mara, the Chinese will have been inspired, of course, by that 1-2 in their women's under-20 race. But I wonder if we will get an upset or a surprise medalist as we had in that women's event.
Yes, absolutely. 2 Chinese entered in this men's race. No season's best for them, but they are the only 2 in the field with personal bests under 40 minutes. We caught a glimpse a moment ago of the Italian athlete Lomuschio of the starters here. He has the fastest this year.
There's Fraser Saunders. Very, very tall, isn't he? The 17-year-old. Wow. Recently won the Victoria State Junior 5,000 metres on the track. Has a best of 46 minutes. Anything around 43, 44 minutes for the men. Very, very quick. Of course, they're a little bit faster than the ladies generally. Another athlete to watch here is Frederick Veigal of Germany. There he is with that black scarf around his neck. Now his dad, his father, Ronald Veigal, was a very famous walker for East Germany back in the 80s and early 90s. In fact, he was a walker who took Olympic medals across the breakdown of the Berlin Wall back in 1989. Frederick Veigal rather, just 16. His father was a three-time Olympic medalist. So Lamusio of Italy, good recent form for the Italian, just 18 years old. The Italians, of course, a huge walking nation in Europe, big resources put into their walking squads. Amit Khatri of India, well, he was second in the world under-20 10,000 metres on the track last year in Nairobi, behind Harrison Wanyonyi of Kenya. That was a bit of a surprise. The 18-year-old who was forced to train hard as a youngster by his father. More of him later. There is Wang Hongren of China. Fastest in the field, actually, is Wang. Long and lean, isn't he? Not the traditional Chinese build, but he looks confident, smiling at the camera. They're very excited. He's a 49 walker. Indeed, once you're getting down below 40 minutes, you are in the supreme elite, the top 4 or 5 in the world. And there is the man who shocked so many last year, Harrison Wanyonyi of Kenya. Former 10,000 metre runner, felt he wasn't fast enough. Well, they get underway, the opposite of the women's race, where there was a long delay before the gun went. In this one, bang, they're gone. Hardly any warning whatsoever, but they're underway. And the Omani athlete towards the back is one of a trio in this race. All relatively inexperienced, but they are accumulating experience from here on. There is a very honest acknowledgement from the Omani Federation that their walkers will not feature in the battle for medals at these championships. They're all relative newcomers to the sport, but you've got to start somewhere. Absolutely, and Oman doing lots of work to host these big sporting occasions, and also to encourage sport amongst the recreational athletes and the population more generally. So full teams in all of the men's events from the host nation Oman today and tomorrow. Spain have a full team along with Italy and Oman, and then other teams with 2 athletes. Again, it's 2 to score. Australia, Brazil, China, Colombia, Czech Republic, Peru, Slovakia and Turkey. So the rivalry between Wanyonyi and Amit Khatri of India resumes after last year's under-20 World Championships. Well, we're looking here at Jaromir Moravec of the Czech Republic. He's a 42.5-minute walker. The 2 Chinese athletes, by the way, are the only ones in this entire field to have broken 40 minutes on the road. That's what separates them from the rest. But since this event was inaugurated in 2004, China have won 4 of the 8 gold medals, including each of the last 3 editions. So I wonder if they can do what their young women did just a few minutes ago and take gold in this race as well. There is Besta of South Africa. And China are the defending team gold medalists from 2018 when it was held in Taipei in China. Japan was second, Australia third on that occasion. Well, Moravec here has blasted away. I mean, we've got 2 minutes on the clock, and he's got about a 20 or 30 metre lead on the pack. Christian Besta of South Africa, just 17 years old in those long black socks. Back in second place, won the Cape Town Junior 10K, road 10K just recently. He has a best of 46.25. And we had a yellow paddle already there for loss of contact. I think that was for Besta, the South African athlete. So just 2 minutes in and we have a yellow paddle. And Veigal there, the German athlete, diminutive figure. Coach Ron Veigal, his father, also coached many of the Australian athletes in the late 90s and early 2000s. Well, Moravec has a best of 42.27. That was last year. He hasn't had a 10 5K walk this year yet. He did recently win the Czech Junior Indoor 5,000 metres and actually holds the Czech Youth 5,000 record with 21:46 from last year. So he does have good speed. Does he have the stamina to outlast the majority of this field? He has taken off here, presumably under coach's orders, Mara. I don't think this is a rush of blood to the head. Like a bat out of hell.
Yeah, I love it when athletes do this. They're just fearless and, you know, go do their own race, and good on them. I mean, it's tough conditions that we'll wait and see if he can maintain this lead, but good on him for taking the bull by the horns. Personal best of 42:27, so he's, you know, this isn't crazy. Just a reminder of the rules if you're just joining us. 2 basic rules in race walking. The walkers have to maintain contact with the ground so that no visible to the human eye loss of contact occurs, and also the advancing leg must be straightened, so not bent at the knee, from the moment of first contact with the ground until the vertical upright position. And we saw a moment ago the yellow paddle. That's really just a warning from the judges that they're watching and they're not satisfied that the athletes are following the rules, but doesn't lead in any way to disqualification. The red cards do, and 3 red cards means a penalty of 1 minute in the penalty zone. A 4th red card means disqualification.
Well, they've already negotiated 1 turn at that northern end of the course. They've enjoyed some downhill. Now they're on the uphill section, heading inland in effect, with the sea behind them, and the wind should be on their backs, which makes it tough. But Bester, of course, a Southern Hemisphere athlete, should be pretty well acclimatized. I still puzzle as to why, when you know it's going to be hot, you'd wear long socks.
Yeah.
And then it's not like the pressure socks. They're not covering his entire calf. It's just the bottom half of his calf.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes athletes have these habits which are as much about superstition as anything else. So Bester, the South African, trying to go with the Czech athlete. 4:25 was the first kilometre split, which would give them a finish time of 44:10 or thereabouts.
Which is not particularly quick for when you think that the top 10 in the world have all walked under 42 minutes this year.
Yeah.
But of course the nature of this circuit, this 2-kilometre circuit, it's 1 kilometre in length. Obviously a downhill going out and an uphill coming back means that times are being slowed quite dramatically, frankly, over what they might do on might produce on a completely flat course. Most walk courses are pretty flat, aren't they? I mean, I'm thinking back to Olympics and World Championships of years gone by. They're usually on a dead flat strip.
Yes, that's right. And the incline on this course is the steepest ever in a championship event.
Well, there you can see the current leader, Jaromír Moravec, who is leading at just past 1 kilometre and negotiating that uphill incline at the moment. The chasing group a little way behind him. The total difference in elevation is 25 metres, about 80 feet. That might not seem a lot over a kilometre, but it's actually all condensed into a fairly short part of the kilometre. And when you've got to negotiate that 5 times, absolutely flat out with your foot on the accelerator, the pressure accumulates, makes it very, very hard to maintain good form.
Tim, just an update on the weather. It was 21 degrees at the start of the women's race, but the BBC weather is telling me now coming up to 27 degrees at 10 a.m. It's now about 9:15 local time. So temperature rising all the time. So in the final stages of this men's race, the combination of the heat and the incline, I think will really take its toll on these athletes.
Well, this is a really unusual situation. 7 minutes on the clock. They haven't yet completed 1 lap, but we have a leader, Jaromír Moravec of the Czech Republic, out in front. Bester there, at just 17 years old, has tried to go with him, but has separated himself from the pack. But he's sort of in no man's land now. He's not far ahead of the pack. He's only 3 or 4 seconds ahead of the pack, but he's some way down on Moravec. I cannot believe that Moravec will be able to maintain the tempo that has carried him clear so quickly. And actually, he built up that gap, Mara, in the first 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, he really set off like a scared rabbit when the gun went.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, if you're an athlete who doesn't like to be in a big group like this, it's perhaps a good tactic. And maybe he's just super confident of his form. And, you know, sometimes the rest of the field will let an athlete go, and they just manage to maintain the gap all the way to the finish. So, but Bester now seems to have been caught by the rest of the group.
It's almost like in cycling, isn't it, when you get a breakaway in the middle stages of a big Tour de France leg, let's say, or a stage, and you think, well, it's miles clear, he's not going to get caught. But when the group gets their mindset and starts closing their gap, it always shocks me how quickly that gap can close between a chasing pack in cycling and a leader. And I suspect the same might be the case here. When the big names back in that pack put their mind to it, they could close pretty quickly. Yeah,
although it looks like he's increased that gap. Interestingly, this is exactly what happened in the men's 50k at the Olympics last year. The Polish athlete Tomala took off relatively early and maintained his gap all the way to the finish. So the Czech athlete Moravec, so through 2k in 9:08, 4:25 he did for the first split. So slowed down a little bit, but that is because he was on the uphill for that second kilometre.
Seems as though the downhill and uphill sections making about a 15-second difference, something that 15-17 second difference to the splits.
Yeah, although interestingly, I mean, the downhill is where the athletes may perhaps be at more risk of infringement of the rules.
Well, how big is that gap now? It's a huge gap. I mean, 20 seconds between Moravec and Bester and the rest of that pack. Papastergiou of Greece in that pack, and also I saw in that group Wanyoni of Kenya just biding his time, tucked in the middle of that pack. On that graphic, the space between the names Moravec and the chasing group is 20 seconds, but also the clever people behind the scenes making those graphics for us are making sure that the gap between the names reflects to a degree the size of the gap between the athletes actually out on the road.
And on the left of your screen there, we could see that's the general drinks table. The athletes also have their own special drinks, their personal refreshments, and they can put anything they want in there. And those tables are manned by team officials who hand the drinks to them. But very early in the race, a lot of the athletes, as we saw in the women's race, putting water on their heads. We just caught a glimpse of Wanyonyi there at the back of that lead pack.
Just looking at the splits at 2 kilometres, Mara, there's 29 athletes in that chasing pack. Actually 28, because we have to discount Moravec. 28 athletes in that chasing pack. He has thrown down the gauntlet here at the face of the entire field, the best walkers in the world, and said, tell you what, try and match me. And at the moment they're all saying, no thanks, you're just going too quick for these early stages. You've got over 3.5 laps to walk. There is the Kenyan Wanyonyi towards the back of the group, and he is just biding his time. He beat a very strong field at the World Under-20s last year in Nairobi. Don't think that it was a weak field because of the pandemic or because it was in Kenya. That field included Paul McGrath of Spain, who had won the European Under-20s last summer, amongst others. He really walked to glory. 46.38 in Nairobi. He's walked on the 4th of February, a month ago, so he's had a little race just to get himself ready for this as Hairston Wanyonyi, the reigning world under-20 champion for 10,000 on the track. And Moravec, a red card already, Mara, for him.
Yeah, so lots of contact for Moravec, and he's been on that downhill section. I think lots of contact more likely on the downhill section, where the athletes really need to concentrate on their technique. So Moravec way out in front, but already quite early in the race, just 12 minutes into it, has a red card. But so far he is the only athlete in the field with a red card.
Well, there's a bit of a breakaway from the chasing pack. I think that gap is closing. I think there is a foreshortening effect, of course, because of the cameras, but there is definitely, I think, a smaller gap between Moravec of the Czech Republic and the chasing pack, and we've got a bit of a breakaway from the chasing pack. It's the Finnish athlete, Erinchev, Sejan Erinchev, this 17-year-old who's a 44.5-minute walker. Indeed, on the track he's actually walked under 44 minutes. Hardly any use of the arms there, is it? Really strange technique.
Yeah, typically you see quite a low arm position, and they really use the arms to help drive the use of the hips.
Well, look, compare it with the walk to the right of picture, Pastor, who I think is one of the Spanish athletes. Yeah, Pablo Pastor. We've got a shot of Pastor just now. Erinchev here, hardly using his arm, very low arm coverage. Look at the difference between him and Pastor, the arm use. It's extraordinary. The Chinese as well really pump hard with their arms. Majority of them do. But Erinchev here perhaps just easing back as on this upslope as the pack swallow him up.
Yeah, reminder what we were saying earlier, that a lot of the race walkers compared to distance runners have a much more developed upper body and musculature to use those arms to keep a good technique. So currently only one red card for Moravec, the Czech athlete, in the lead.
One of the Italians there in third place. Just looking at which one that is. That's Notare Stefano. Pietro Pio Notare Stefano, wonderfully named 18-year-old, fastest indoor 5,000 meters in the world this year for under 20s. And there is the chasing group. Well, it has closed. Moravec, what, about 4 or 5 minutes ago, had a 20-second lead, Mara. Now it's down to 14, and just get the impression the pack are cranking it up. And of course that's displayed there amply by the fact that the pack is stretching out now. They're not bunched, it's two abreast, and they're beginning to motor. And I suggest that Moravec's days at the front, his days are numbered. His time is limited.
I think so. And also, as you can see, with a big group like this, it's more difficult for the judges to spot loss of contact or the bent knee infringement. But Moravec out on his own, he's very exposed to the scrutiny of the judges.
Well, at 3K, Moravec's time 13:41, and it was just a 14-second lead at that point from the big pack. And yeah, he's blowing hard now. I think that might have been his, was it Andy Warhol said 15 seconds of glory? Everybody gets 15 seconds of glory.
Yeah, he certainly looked very confident when he set out. And it's very early days yet in the team standings, but through 3 kilometers, Spain are in the lead, followed by China and then Turkey.
Well, let's take a look at Amit here. He is the young man who took the silver medal last year at those World Under-20 Championships in Nairobi. His personal best, 40:28. And the Indian Amit looking quite strong, and he's a fascinating character. His coach, Chandan Singh in Pune, has represented India in 2 World Championships himself, is still an active athlete. A lot of the training that he gives young Amit Khatri, the 18-year-old, is via WhatsApp. They have a great relationship, and apparently when he was a youngster, he used to lie in bed, and his father used to go out and jog in the mornings, and he used to drag young Amit Khatri out of bed and say, come on, you're going to get on with life, you're going to build something for yourself. He wanted him to be good at sport, and he credits his father with his his ability now to apply himself and train so hard as Khatri, the Indian. Celebrated widely in India, the first ever World Championship medal for India in the walking disciplines in any category, any age group, either gender. And he's certainly one of the favourites here and giving a good account of himself at the moment. The Italians are well represented up there in the top 10 or 15. There is Wanyonyi, the Kenyan, the only Kenyan representative in this, by the way, Hairston Wanyonyi. Veigal there of Germany. beginning to suffer a little bit. Has had to let go. Yildiz of Turkey, just 17 years old. He's a 43-minute walker. He's a really good athlete, Yildiz. He's struggling in these early stages.
And India, of course, have the gold medalist in the men's javelin from the Olympics. So athletics becoming stronger all the time in India. Linz of Latvia there. He is down in around 20th place. Sorry, 28th place for Linz of Latvia. So still only one red card in this men's field.
Well, the Spaniard there, Martinez Rodriguez, the 18-year-old, second junior 10-kilometre race just recently. He actually won the Catalan junior 10 kilometres too earlier on this year, so he's had a couple of good races to build into this as Martinez Rodriguez, and he's at the moment pushing really hard here, isn't he? Veigal, we understand, has just had a yellow card. Pastor tucked in there behind his teammate. The Spanish packing really well there in this chasing group. Let's have a look at this distance through to the leader. Well, he has been closed down on dramatically, hasn't he? 19 minutes on the clock. He had a 20-second lead about 10 minutes ago. Well, now it's down to, dare I say, 2 or 3 seconds, 5 seconds in fact, at 4 kilometres. And that's split, well, the writing on the wall, I'm afraid, for the Czech. I wonder whether or not he was following coach's orders, or if indeed it was just a rather rash, independent decision, and his coach is banging his head against the wall back home. What do you reckon?
Who knows? I mean, he looked really confident. Maybe he felt like his heat acclimatization had gone well. You know, sometimes this is what you have to do to get a really good result. You just have to throw caution to the wind and not fiddle around in the group. But looks like the Czech athlete will soon be swallowed up by the following group, and there is Wanyonyi Wafula of Kenya, the world under-20 champion over 10,000 metres on the track, and of course the Commonwealth Games later this summer, that will also be a 10,000 metres on the track. Very busy summer coming up with the world under-20s in Cali, the World Senior Championships in Oregon, European Championships, so plenty of opportunities for these athletes. And we saw another yellow paddle there from one of the judges. So the judges can walk right across the course. A reminder that there are 8 judges covering the entirety of the course. And the chief judge, Zoe Eastwood Bryson from Australia, in charge.
We just saw the 2 Peruvian athletes go through Shota 30 seconds or so ago. The 16-year-old Emmanuel Apadza having a real baptism of fire here, and his teammate Jaime Rolino Canto Agomedo. They're walking together. There they are, but they're some way down on that main pack. And, well, they've travelled a long way to get here, of course. I don't know if jet lag is a factor. Canto Agomedo is only 17 years old, so they are 2 of the youngest in the field. But here's that main pack, and Moravec has indeed been swallowed up. And actually, the 2K time for Moravec, 9:08. His second 2 kilometres was 9:23, so it was 15 seconds slower. And that, of course, accounts for most of the gap that has been swallowed up and seen him swallowed up and absorbed into this pack now. There's the Spanish trio, Martinez Rodriguez, Pastor and Rodriguez Rojas. They are beginning to work together pretty well there to the right of picture.
Yep. And Spain currently leading the team standings through 4 kilometres. So we're getting more news of red cards. So Christian Bester, the South African athlete who started off in 2nd place out on his own, he has a bent knee red card.
Interesting to see Amit of India now hitting the front, or he did for a moment there, and they had to negotiate that left-hand turn. He lost a lot of ground. He was on the outside of the bend. But Amit in the blue, and still out yet to show his cards, so to speak, is Wanyonyi of Kenya. Speaking of cards, there you can see Silva, Moravec and Bester all have each have a red card. And Linins also has one, the Latvian we saw a few minutes ago, Raivo Linins, the 18-year-old. His first race of the year, this. He's a 51-minute performer. And of course, what is very difficult, I suppose, Mara, for these athletes is when they are in a big pack that's moving faster than they're really capable of themselves. They are tempted to be dragged along and raise their game, stick with that pack, but they actually can't maintain a technique to move at that speed, and they're going to get cards. They're going to get warning cards.
Absolutely, that's the real challenge when they're under pressure to go faster. If they don't have the technique at those faster speeds, then they will be found out. We saw earlier with Chinese athletes in the women's race such a smooth flowing technique. So just wondering if the speed has really started to crank up.
Well, we're looking now at, what, 23 minutes on the clock, 5 kilometres coming through any second. In fact, the 5 kilometre split is there, 23:07 at 5K. So they're, come on, Mara, what's your maths like? 5K, 23:07. They're moving at about 4:37 per kilometre, there or thereabouts.
Yeah. I mean, those of you, the viewers who are keen walkers, try walking at 4:37 minutes per kilometre. It is unbelievable the speed that these athletes are going at. And interestingly, silver is on 1 red card for each of the infringements.
There's that lead group, quite a big pack. What, about 15 strong at the moment? Demir of Turkey it is who leads. He's a good young athlete, the 18-year-old. Has a best of 41:51. That was from the Turkish junior 10,000 metres or 10K on the roads earlier on this year. But he was 4th in the European under-20s last summer, and then 6th in those World Under-20s in Nairobi late last summer. So he has great championship form, does Mazlum Demir. Walking with confidence, both those shins strapped up. I wonder if he's been carrying 1 or 2 injuries. The Chinese beginning to move to the fore almost inevitably. Wang Hongren and Zheng Yu, both wearing those dark glasses and white caps. The Italian in the blue there, Notare Stefano, had a good walk over 5,000 metres on the track in Ancona back in early February. And there's the team standings, Mara. Spain looking good.
Yeah, Spain having a fantastic race so far on 9 points, 2 to score, of course. Czech Republic in 2nd, Italy 3rd, China in 4th. That's a bit of a surprise.
Well, it is. And I wonder if that will get updated soon. 23:07 at 5K, so that was 2.5 minutes ago. Here are some of the back markers. Apatza of Peru. Menchel of Slovakia working with those two. Alfonso of Colombia just tucked in there.
So we just heard that Brazil's Victor Silva is now on 3 red cards, 2 for Bentley and 1 for loss of contact, so he will be going into the penalty zone.
Wonderful side-on picture there of Demir and the speed that he is producing. This is an attack. This is a very serious surge being put in by Mazlum Demir mid-race. Only about 5.5 kilometres done, and he is going hell for leather now to try and break away. I think he must probably recognise the danger of the Chinese moving onto his shoulder. I don't know if somebody's had a word from him. Maybe one of the coaches has said, come on, go for it now, don't waste time. But he has suddenly upped his game.
10 kilometres earlier this year. يقوم بمحاولة جريئة، محاولة شجاعة، ويقود السباق الكثير من التقنيات. ينتظر وراها هل سيستطيع جزء الكثير على هذه المسافة وهذه المقدمة الصحيحة معنا وهذه
Julian team with him, so Turkey.
And he's suddenly snatched about 10 or 15 metres from that field in the space of about a minute and a half. But look at the cadence there, the turnover. Good technique from Demir. Surely he can't maintain this. This is like putting in a surge mid-race in a track 5,000 or 10,000 to try and break the opposition, but the toughest period when you put in a surge like this, a really intense acceleration, is the couple of minutes after it. So you can accelerate like this for a couple of minutes, pump really hard with the arms, but then you can't have a breather, because if you have a breather, the others will just ease up to you. The skill, and when you're going to employ a tactic like this, is to try and maintain that effort for another 2 or 3 minutes to get the gap.
Yep. And just an update on Silva. Silva now on 4 red cards, so Silva of Brazil will be disqualified. And the athlete is now approaching 6 kilometres, so the team standings through 5K, the lead group was still very much bunched up, but now it's getting spread out and looks like China, the 2 Chinese athletes chasing Demir of the Turk, and the Indian, I think that was the Indian, just got loss of contact, yellow paddle.
Yeah, Amit's there, getting a warning card. He's moved away from the pack with the Chinese. I'll tell you what, though, I think that Wanyonyi of Kenya has been taken by surprise by this surge. He didn't respond quickly enough. He was sitting back in the pack. I thought possibly just playing his cards very, very smartly, biding his time. But then Demir here put in that surge 3 or 4 minutes ago, attacked so viciously that Wanyonyi, I suspect, was caught by surprise. Unless the young Kenyan is just having a bad day at the office, he's got a lot of work to do. You can see him back there. He's in about 7th or 8th place. But Demir is maintaining the pressure. And now in this downhill section, Mara, he can really, as long as he can stick within the rules and avoid those warning cards or red cards, he can really leverage this gap he's got and break away to perhaps a medal-winning performance.
Yeah, the question is, has he put in too much of a surge too early, and will he suffer in the latter stages? But we'll soon find out. Anyway, the Chinese athletes making chase, and the Kenyan athlete Wanyonyi through 6K was down in 7th place.
Well, at 6K, 27:32. And I suspect, and there is a warning disc for Demir. And judge has not like what he's seeing. But there are the splits. 8 seconds, the gap at 6K. And Zheng, Wang and Amit are 4 seconds ahead of the chasing group behind them. The third group, Gianpaolo Moravec, is actually hanging on pretty well. The Czech who blasted away for the first few kilometres.
Yep, and there is Silva, who's just been disqualified, the Brazilian athlete. So he had 4 red cards.
Well, he seems to be taking it philosophically, there does Silva. João Victor Silva, the 18-year-old. Demir negotiates the turn at the bottom end of the course, the lower end, that is the northern end, of course. He had a good look across, didn't he, at the chasing group?
Yeah, good glance across there. So Demir, good technique at the moment. So Irinchev, the Finn, on 2 red cards.
Yes, and Joaquim of New Zealand, of Moravec, Kun Bolatuli, Besta and Menchel all on 1 red card. When you're on 2 red cards, you really have got to sort of ease back a little bit, haven't you? Because in the old days, you used to get disqualified if you got 3 red cards. Now with the
penalty zone,
you sort of, you've almost been given another life. You can get 3 red cards, and yes, it's horrible to be given a 1-minute penalty, but you're still in the fight.
That's right. Yeah, it gives you a chance to complete the race and register a time. But of course, a 1-minute penalty in a relatively short race, it's going to push you several positions down the order. So
grimacing really hard here is Demir. Mazlum Demir on this upslope, determined to maintain the effort, glancing across there at somebody. I'm not sure he didn't wink at them, but he was smiling, certainly. It's a half grimace, half smile, but he's maintaining the pressure. Now the question is, can he hold this through to the finish? Because that gap back to the Chinese, I don't think it's closing. It was 8 seconds at 6K with 27 minutes on the clock. He's approaching 7K. In fact, 7K 31:33. and the gap is 10 seconds. Mara, he's pulling away.
Yep. So with 3K left and the two Chinese chasing, but Demir looks good technically at the moment, and the Chinese athletes look like they've dropped the Indian Amit.
They look very calm, don't they, the two Chinese? There they are. They're on the upslope now. We know this. And the Chinese with Amit back behind them in 4th place. The Indian just losing a bit of ground on this Chinese pairing. Now, I wonder if that indicates that they are beginning to start a bit of a gallop here and close on the leader, Demir.
Yeah, you can really see the uphill there. And just a reminder of the team standings through 7K. China in the lead. Oh, that was quick, very quick. Demir looks like he's going through a bad patch.
Well, I thought he was maintaining his effort. Literally about 90 seconds ago, we saw him working really hard. But the Chinese here have effectively changed gear. I think there was a warning card being held out, and one for the Indian as well.
Yep.
Goodness me.
But Demir trying to hang on to the Chinese athletes, but looks now like they've gone ahead. And a little grin there from the Chinese Wang. So just back to the team standings, China in the lead at 7K, Italy in 2nd on 12 points, and Spain in 3rd on 18, Czech Republic in 4th.
Well, Zheng and Wang here working together. It's almost a sense of deja vu, isn't there? The Chinese pairing in the women's under-20 an hour or so ago, working together and easing away from the field in the second half.
Side by side.
Exactly the same unfolding here in Muscat in the men's under-20 race. Amit Khatri is working really hard. I mean, he has roared past Demir, who I think has shot his bolt, I'm afraid, the young Turk. But Amit Khatri might be heading for another medal. He took a silver last year in the World Under-20 10,000 on the track. But on the roads, he's going well as well.
Certainly is. So it's all China at the moment. China have won individual gold in the last 3 editions of this event, and they are the defending team champions as well. Going back a little bit, Kai Zelin from 2010, the silver medalist, went on to win silver at the Rio Olympics. So we might see Zheng and Wang in the senior ranks in the coming years. And there is one of the Oman athletes, full team from Oman in this men's race, sadly being lapped. And here comes Wan Yonyi.
Yeah, exactly. The Chinese pairing out in front, working hard, beginning to lap athletes. We actually saw an Omani athlete lapped a long time ago. Amit there goes through. Amit Khatri, the young Indian, and many in India will be roaring him on. But here he comes now, the Kenyan, Hairiston Wanyonyi Wafula. He's better known as Hairiston Wanyonyi, even though his number says, his bib says Wafula. World Junior Champion, World Under-20 Champion last year on the track at 10,000. Now, I wonder if he's left it a bit late, because they haven't got long to go. 35 minutes on the clock. And Wanyonyi has got a lot of ground to make up on Amit Khatri and that Chinese pairing out in front. They're working together. They're pumping really hard to try and break the Indian. And I'm sure they'll be aware, because at the turnarounds they get a good view of what's going on behind them. They'll be aware that Wanyonyi is there or thereabouts, and they'll be aware too, Mara, of his status as a reigning world champion on the track.
Yeah, absolutely. He's looking pretty good to me. He's got slightly uneven arm action there, but Wanyonyi now into 4th place.
Well, the fascinating thing about Wanyonyi is he said that he tried running as a youngster, but of course he found out that he wasn't good enough to be a good runner, turned to walking and became a world champion.
So through 8K, Tim, Wanyonyi was 13 seconds off the leaders, the two Chinese, and Amit was 2 seconds down. And down in 5th place, Giampaolo of Italy, 19 seconds adrift of the leaders. 6th place, Irinchev of Finland. He's on 2 red cards. So top 5, no red cards.
Well, there it is. Wafula Wanyonyi of Kenya is 13 seconds down. And Amit here, we saw him get a warning disc just a couple of minutes ago, moving to the side to get a drink. But he is right up alongside the two Chinese. He has closed on them. Big acceleration from him over the last couple of minutes. And this is the battle. Now, can he split the two Chinese? Veigal of Finland in the women's race couldn't get amongst them. She had to settle for third place behind the Chinese 1-2. Are we going to see a repeat of that here, or can Amit Khatri split the Chinese pairing? And that's a warning card, I think, for Zheng, and another one for Amit.
Yeah, and Amit actually has a red card now for loss of contact, so one red card and a yellow paddle also from that judge we just saw there. But the two Chinese athletes currently on no red cards. Ditto for Wang Yonyi in fourth.
And Wang Yonyi is motoring. He is closing, there's no doubt about it. And those Kenyan colours as they pass another of the Mani athletes. There's the team standings. China leading pretty comfortably, of course, 1-2 at the moment. Italy on 18, Spain on 20. Not that we've seen much of the Italian or Spanish athletes in the latter stages, but of course the team element just makes your efforts through the race very, very important. Even if you're nowhere near, if you haven't got a sniff of a medal, your efforts are still very important. Now, was that another?
That was another paddle for Zheng, I think. That was loss of contact for Zheng. But again, the yellow paddles don't lead to red cards. Currently, both Chinese athletes on 0 red cards, but Amit really giving the Chinese a run for their money.
Isn't he doing an incredible job here? Amit challenging the Indian, the Chinese, getting his nose in front even. Was that another warning for Zheng?
Yep.
Who's just beginning to ease back on the throttle. I wonder if he's thinking, here are those red cards. Silva we know is disqualified. Bester is sitting out a penalty. Joachim and Moravec, Erinchev, Amit and Wafula. That's Wang Yonyi of Kenya. Each on 2 red cards, so Wang Yonyi's going to have to be careful now.
Yeah, and Amit, yeah. So there could be a lot of change up at the front with those 2 on 2 red cards, and further down the field also 6th and 7th.
Wang Yonyi, I said he was closing. He's now, what, about 3 or 4 seconds behind this trio. But that could be really decisive, Mara, the fact that he's on 2 red cards. He needs to be cautious now.
Yeah. So Wang Yonyi was 13 seconds behind at 8K, but looks like he's closing. And Zheng now on 1 red card for loss of contact. So Zheng, we saw him get, I think it was 3 yellow paddles.
Well, Hairiston Wang Yonyi, Wafula here of Kenya, coached by Jeffrey Otwani. And we're hearing now that Wang Yonyi is on 3 red cards along with Amit. So the pair of them, when they come past the penalty zone, these efforts will count for nothing effectively, because they will be sin-binned in the penalty zone for 1 minute, and that makes a huge difference, Mara. And of course, that penalty zone is just a couple hundred metres before the finish line. Yep,
that's right. So they're going to have a nasty shot when they come out to the penalty zone, and that means that the Italian, who is in 5th currently, 13 seconds adrift of the leaders, he's going to move up in the standings. Wang Yonyi had closed the gap to 6 seconds through 9K, but he's going to be in the penalty zone next time around. So the Italian, I think, is going to be up into
third place.
Yep.
That's who would beat Diego Giampaolo, the 18-year-old, who has a best of 42.26 from earlier on this year. He's one of the few who has set his lifetime best this year. That was when he was second in the Pescara junior road 10K just a few weeks ago. And Amit here pouring it on, but he doesn't realise that he has got a 1 minute penalty coming at him. Now, the gap between his blue vest and the blue vest you might be able to see just in the background, beyond the 2 Chinese and beyond Wang Yonyi, is the blue vest of Giampaolo, but I don't think it's anything like a minute, that gap. And all this effort might yet not be rewarded with a medal, I'm afraid. It'll be a place in the top 10, but Amit here doesn't know, we believe, that he's got a 1 minute penalty zone coming at him.
Yeah, that's right. So Giampaolo was 13 seconds behind the leaders at 9K. Chinese, so Zheng now on 2 red cards. So Zheng also in danger of going into the penalty. Remember, if they pass the penalty zone for the last time, get a 3rd red card, they can have a minute added after the finish.
Well, you can see now Wang Yonyi has moved into 3rd place. He's splitting the Chinese. Doesn't have great technique, very short stride, Wang Yonyi. and really pumping along there. Make up your own mind as to that technique and whether he's maintaining contact with the ground. But he is on 3 red cards, we know that. And as he pushes on through this final kilometre between the 2 Chinese, 2 of the 4 athletes in view are going into the penalty zone for 1 minute, and the 2 Chinese are going to march on surely to a 1-2 finish, although Zheng is on 2 red cards, so he's got to be careful.
Yeah, and of course if Amit or Wafula get a 4th red card before the penalty zone, they're out. Meanwhile, a bit further down, Irinchev in 6th, he's on 2 red cards. This is best of the South African in the penalty zone, having to sit there for 1 minute. It's 1 minute penalty for every 10 kilometres, so in the 20-kilometre races over this next couple of days, it'll be a 2-minute sit out in the penalty zone, for example, and so on. 3.5 minutes for the 35k walkers tomorrow. Amit might think, poor lad, that he's pushing on to gold here. Wang working incredibly hard. Wang Hongren. Amit has got 4 red cards, so Amit, I'm afraid, the leader, is pushing on so hard, working flat out, but the young Indian, Amit Khatri, will be disqualified. And there he is disqualified, so Amit thought he was leading. That is the unique tragedy of race walking. They all know it, it's part of the nature of the beast. It's been part of the history of the event. And we've seen this before, and I think Wanyonyi there at least was moved into the penalty zone while Amit was disqualified. And this is the man who is walking to victory, surely. Wang Hongren, the 18-year-old Chinese, is one of only 2 athletes, his compatriot the other, who had broken 40 minutes for this distance. But on this circuit, forget about times. It's not a quick circuit. It's going to be outside 44 minutes. But it is going to be significantly a gold medal winning performance in the men's under-20 10-kilometre walk for Wang Hongren of China. They retain the individual title and surely retain the team gold. A battle for the silver medal there. And who got it? I think maybe, just maybe, Diego Giampaolo of Italy, taking the individual silver there ahead of Zheng Yu. It is by tenths of a second, if not hundreds. The Italians, through Giampaolo, split the Chinese. What couldn't be achieved by Veigal in the women's 10-kilometre race earlier, the under-20 women's race. It is not a 1-2 for China. Pending any late decisions that come through from judges, China take gold and bronze, and Italy the silver through Diego Giampaolo. What an incredible finish from Giampaolo there. And 4th place, the Finn Irinchev. Irinchev, who was on 2 reds, I think. So on our computer now. And here is Wafula Wanyonyi, the track 10,000 metre world under-20 champion from last year, has had to sit out a minute in the penalty zone, and he crosses the line, and I think unofficially that's him in 5th place. Yes, it is. Take a minute off that time and he'd have been very, very close to the medals, wouldn't he? Maybe not amongst them. Who knows what would have happened when you've got somebody 3 or 4 seconds up the road from you. So Wanyonyi, Tim, has done a national under-20 record, 45.18. However, Irinchev in 4th is on 3 red cards according to our computer. So I'm just wondering if he will have a minute added to his finish time. Meanwhile, in 6th, Romero of Colombia, Pastor of Spain. So we'll bring you an update on the team standings at the finish. So China, 4 points, winning the gold for the team competition. There is Demir Rodriguez Rojas, had walked himself into the ground almost literally. Demir, who had to sit out a minute in the penalty zone. He crosses the line back in, what, about 10th place? And we're not getting the individual results on our computers just at the moment. Demir was in 11th place. Yeah, and just coming back to the team standings, Italy 2nd and Spain 3rd. Well, that was vicious walking from the Chinese in the latter stages. Wonderfully judged efforts from the Chinese pairing.
Diego Gianpaolo of Italy will be celebrating with that performance, splitting the Chinese. That wasn't expected. Sachicek goes through for the Czech Republic. Adam Zahicek, the 18-year-old.
13th place for him.
And there is those team standings. It's confirmed then that China win from Italy and Spain. Ganto of Peru, he hasn't really enjoyed his day out. Jaime Rolino, Canto Alcomedo, just be glad to finish the 17-year-old. And one of the South Africans coming through, that's Saunders. In fact, the Australian, excuse me, very similar kit. Fraser Saunders, perhaps the tallest man in the race, I reckon. He's a 46.04 performer, and he finishes there in about 47.40, so that's not far outside his best. He's had a fabulous contest today, has Fraser Saunders. Well done to him. Yeah,
15th place for Saunders, the Australian. Frederick Veigal, the German, coming home in a season's best, 47.47 in 16th place. And here comes the Slovakian athlete Menchel, coming home in 17th place.
The other Peruvian coming through there, Apatza. Wonderful organisation, great work from all the officials at these race walking team championships. As you can see, the ice packs out there being given to all the athletes. Every single one of them getting brilliant attention as soon as they cross the line, because the officials know how tough it is out there in that heat, in the warmth. Temperature now, Mari, got an update. It must be 25, 26 degrees, I would imagine. The temperature climbing through the morning in Oman.
Yeah, so 10 a.m. local